Welcome, Doctor. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. Come on in. We're ready to move into this time of sharing. We've got some great information for you today. We are excited about what we've been given. But let's just do a check-in. Let's start with uh, Pastor Jalen Smith. What's going on, girl?
Not much. I am in a good place at the moment, so I'm having a pretty good week.
Good.
That's
And
it.
that's good. That's good. How about you, Katrina? What's happening with you?
Same. Everything is good, moving along, busy. But I guess that's every week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is for all of us. I'm excited. This tomorrow we kick off our 40 days of fasting. We'll be fasting for 40 days. I'm excited about it. I think our topic today is going to fit into that. In fact, I gave some instructions today that I believe will coincide with what my instructions were with them. 40 day, we're doing a Daniel fast, and so we've identified that we want to make sure that we seek God. I believe with everything that's going on, that we, I think, as a world, are being traumatized. What is happening in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine; it's in fact impacting us. And so we look at all of the things that people, there are triggers. There are still individuals who are triggered because of what's going on in the Ukraine, and so we want to be able to move this hearing God's voice. We identify that we're fasting, but fasting without prayer is just a diet. So we want to make sure that we're adding prayer. And so we're adding a couple of extra times of prayer, doing some extra Bible reading in regards to this time of fasting. So this time of consecration. So I'm excited about what our topic is today. So we're going to jump right into this. Just a few minutes late, few seconds late, I guess. Let's talk about. We're talking about journaling and inspired journaling. And so we want to talk about that. We've got a number of types of journals, different kinds of way of journaling. We're going to talk about that. Some of these I've never heard of before, so I'm excited to hear about them and being able to identify them. I am a journaler, and so I will share my experience with journaling and some of my challenges with journaling. But let's just answer this question, if we can, to the best of our ability: is why journal? Why do we do it? What are some reasons that we journal? I believe, Katrina, you use journaling as a prescription in your practice. Can you talk a little bit about why you do that?
Well, I think it's beneficial to journal, right? For one, just to see your growth process, right? And I'm pretty sure Jaylyn will go through a lot of that as it relates to some of the journaling in which she uses. Primarily when getting started, though, I like to, I teach people how to journal by just journaling some of the negative cognitions that they might have. So those negative thoughts, those thoughts that make us feel sad, depressed, right? And as a matter of fact, Pastor Aubrey, I think we did it on here one day, the exercise that I had you walk through and identify one negative thing and then 5 positive things.
You put me on the spot, yes.
Yes. Yes. So when I have a client who has ruminating thoughts, they're struggling with sleeping, and I want them to identify what's keeping them up and write it down, especially if it's something that might be causing depression, their anxiety or something like that. So I have them write it down and then just counteract that negative thought so that they can relax and calm down whatever's heightening them in that moment. So that's how I start out. I try to make it easy.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Good.
talk through journaling because the reason why I recommend journaling is because anything that you keep inside affects you. So if you keep in negative thoughts, if you keep in your feelings, if you keep in, whatever you take in. I know we think of when we take in food and how food affects our bodies, our thoughts, emotions, those things, if we hold on to them very tightly, they affect us in the long term. And journaling is a way to get them out. I mean, you think about tears, we cry to get our emotions out, they come out, they physically come out of our bodies. So, journaling is a way to get what we're feeling on the inside out. And I think also you find a lot of revelation in journaling. Like you think you're dealing with one thing, and then you start writing stuff down or however you choose to journal, and you realize it's completely different and there's something deeper or more impactful that's really affecting you. So I just find that journaling is a way to really get to the root of our problems and the root of our feelings and emotions, and just kind of clear things up so we have room to receive more positive things. We get all the stuff out that we don't want to have anymore, and then we have room, we're open now to receive some positive, some affirmation, something. It's just, journaling is the bomb, y'all. It just is. It's just amazing, and it's beneficial in all of its forms, depending on what you need. And so there's so many ways to do it. I think it's just, yeah, I just love journaling. That's period.
That's good. That's good. Listen, one of the things that I want you to do, if you're watching us and you're observing here, let me know if you are journaling, if you actually journal, and if you have challenges journaling. Is there something that prevents you, or you find roadblocks that you said no, I don't want to journal? Could you just share that in the chat? That I'm a journaler, or I'd like to be a journaler. Just put that in the chat so we can know who we're talking to, so we'll be able to share in that. That for me, journaling. So we've talked about why we journal. One of the reasons I started journaling many years ago, and part of that was through my 12-step program. So my mom was a journaler, and I realized she journaled, and so she had many journals. And I remember at one point in time, her actually taking some of her journals and actually burning them. That was a symbol of letting go of things in the past that she could now symbolize that this was over. And so I remember her modeling for me that she was that journaling journey. And so I started writing, and I realized that in doing that, I was getting some things, and even as I was going back to read them, I was surprised at some of the things that were coming out. That weren't coming out because I really wasn't talking about it. I really wasn't conversing with anybody. But in journaling, I felt safe. Part of my challenge has been just being consistent, but I have to keep from beating myself up if I miss a day or miss a period of time. That I just go back to it and not lament over the fact that I missed it. Anybody else want to share with their personal experiences?
I journal a lot. I've been journaling since I was 6. I didn't know what to call it then. I was 6. You don't really know. I journal naturally because I was the youngest in a house where my brother is just pretty much gone all the time. So I really didn't have any sibling to talk to. So I just wrote stuff down. It was little bitty things. It was poems. It was, drawings. It was things that I could write down. And I actually used to journal in code, which I still do sometimes if I'm in a space where I feel unsafe. So it allowed me to write something down that only I understood. And it was kind of like my own little banner against and protection against some other people. But I don't really have too many challenges journaling because I don't really think of it that way. As I don't think of it as a process. It's pretty natural for me. So I'm probably not the best person to talk about challenges because it's just something I've always done.
Okay. She's a writer. We have a writer who, of course,
I do. Right? Yeah, exactly. How many books has she written?
Right. Yeah. No. I've had challenges journaling. The consistency, I believe, has been an issue with me. But one of the things that I have to remind myself is if I'm gonna ask my clients to do it, I need to be able to do it. Right. But I also started like you, Jaylin, when I was young. But mine was a Dear Diary. My first journal was my diary with the key. The key that didn't really lock it up because all you had to do was press the button and they could open it and get into it. So what was the point of having a key? But that was my first journal, my diary when I was young.
Yeah, I had one of those too. It was pink with a little gold lock. Yeah, Yeah, you're right. And it was like 50 million keys and none of them made a difference because you could press it with the button. And yeah, because they had a lot of journaling before when we were kids too. So we saw a lot of that. I think like, I don't know, see, I'm gonna tell my age, but I used to watch Blossom, and Blossom was doing the whole like vlog situation. And then there were other shows where the main character, who was about my age, was actually journaling. So it wasn't even something for me that was unusual or abnormal. And I think a lot of us see journaling and we write stuff all the time. We don't even realize that that's technically journaling. So I think that's a reality too, is that we sometimes, when it's like me, where it's not something that I even knew was a thing until I was much older, because it's not something that I felt like I had to do. I just did naturally. I think that's why it was easier for me to keep it up, because I wasn't pressured to feel in a certain type of way about it.
There is an opportunity for understanding this, and I'm so grateful. I see so many of our listeners. Apostle Stephen Gardner, thank you for joining us. He talks about having his parishioners journal, as well as journaling himself. And even his professional clients. And so we have a number of people. We've got some who want to journal. So hopefully you'll be inspired to journal after we finish today. And for those of you who are already journaling, maybe we can do better. Maybe we can improve on our journaling. So, Pastor Jay, why don't you take us into the kinds of journaling and lead us through these 15? The number of journals that you have for us to learn about.
First of all, I do not appreciate being clowned at the number of journals that I have, but I'm going to let it slide today because this is one of my favorite topics. So I have a lot of journals here. I have a lot of different types, and we're going to kind of go through the different types. Now, reflective journaling is the first thing. Reflective is the one that's the most common. Basically, reflective journaling is when you take whatever you're feeling and then you write it down at the end of the day. Today was a good day because I had a productive day, or today sucked because this, that, and the other. Whatever language you use, reflective journaling is about expressing your feelings and emotions. Let me be clear, that's not the same as daily journaling. Reflective journaling is, in fact, reflective. So if you don't have anything, of note or important to write in that particular day, then you don't have to. So it's a very common situation. This is an example of a reflective journal. It's a plain journal. It doesn't have any writing in it. I'm sorry it's shiny because it's plastic. But basically, it has little moods on the front. This one's kind of neat because it has stickers in it. We love stickers because we can stick them on the pages and, how we feel about it. But the pages themselves are completely and totally blank. And they just have you can put the date on it. They're not pre-dated. That's usually your indication that you're using a reflective journal, because it doesn't have a specific date listed or a specific day of the week. It's just kind of open to whenever you feel it. All right. So that's what a reflective journaling is. That's usually for people who really just kind of want to get their feelings out. Maybe you write more some weeks and less some others. Maybe you don't need to write on Tuesday because it was pretty boring and you're just gonna go to sleep now, so reflective journaling is kind of an open book for you. I don't know if Trina has any thoughts on reflective journaling or questions.
I believe sometimes reflective journaling in the process, like if you're going through therapy and you're trying to identify what happened and why I'm feeling this way, right? Reflective journaling is good for that. It will help you uncover some things, right, about you. Though I think the most important thing about reflective journaling is really being able to take that introspective look at what's going on. When you can't think it through, you can write it out.
It's more of a drill down. It basically lets you not just write, I'm sad today, but you start to write, why am I sad? Then you start to break things down. So reflective journaling is about expressing your emotions, not to anybody else, but to yourself. So if you're in a relationship, you may reflective journal prior to sharing something with the other person to make sure you understand why you're feeling the way you do yourself. You know what I mean? It's very, it's really about you. It is truly reflective. You're looking at yourself in this, journaling mirror, and then you are regurgitating what you feel about yourself on paper. I see Pastor Aubrey with his thinking cap on.
Yes, he do. A couple of questions. One is what I guess notes is in that reflective mode, realizing that it is yours, and that you need to be responsible for keeping it private. They are your thoughts, and you own them. And so that making sure that that I'm writing, and I'm not really looking for anybody to grade it, because sometimes we get hung up on punctuation and wording and that, and saying it's just your thoughts, it's just for you. This is the question I would have, and maybe there's a different kind of journal, but I've asked individuals who are going through this fast, that they would journal, that they would note down what their experience is, what kind of things are being revealed, what things are being understood. Is this the place? Is this the kind of journal that we're referring to, reflective journal, or is there another one that you would say?
So I think reflective journaling would be kind of one of the ways. I mean, basically, you're taking a reflection, kind of a mirror. However, I think there's a different name. I'm looking at Trina's face because she's giving the same face I am. I think there's a different name for a journal that's specifically for during a fast. And I don't know the name of that specifically, but it would really be kind of, it's similar to a reflective journal. There are journaling techniques specifically for specific things. So like if you go on a retreat, then you want to keep a journal of that. Then yeah, you would be writing a reflective journal for that particular experience. But yeah, so yeah, you're basically asking them to reflective journal, but there is a better name for it. Trina, you know what it is?
Well, I think if I understood him correctly this morning during our prayer time, it's going to be a combination of a prayer journal and reflective journaling, because what you're doing is you're reflecting on what is God saying to me in this season. If I'm not mistaken, that's what you were saying. That's what you're hoping will happen. But I think also, and I say a combination between prayer journal and reflective journaling, is because during that time, maybe God is also asking you to look at yourself.
Right.
What's going on? What happened? He wants you to gain a true understanding of where you are in this season, and then maybe where you're going. And so a reflective journal does allow you to even align like your future actions with where you are now too.
Right. That answer your question, Pastor Aubrey?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Moving along. All right, we got another journal type. This is a daily journal. So daily journaling is a little bit different from reflective journaling. So this is a daily journal. This one's called The Story of My Life. I got it at Target. I get most all my journals at Target. They have really nice ones there. The difference between a daily journal and a reflective journal is that a daily journal is prompted. And what I mean by prompted is it will tell you, see that? It'll tell you what to write. So this one, for example, it says my family ancestry originates from, and then go into as many details as you can. Then there's another one. What's the history behind my family's name? This journal is specifically designed so that you can start to write stories about you. So if you're like, oh, I always wanted to write my autobiography and I don't know where to start, this is a really great journal for something like that. This is going to give you what you need to write daily. I have other journals that are daily journals, and they have really fun prompts. Some of them have, jokes in them. Some of them have different photos and stuff. Daily journaling is just really more of a fun type journal, or more of a journal for somebody who needs a little direction. Like maybe you don't understand reflective, you don't want to get that deep just yet, but you want to write some stuff down and get started. This might be a way to do that. This is one of like many, many examples of prompt journals that you can use to do the daily journaling. Thoughts, you guys? Questions?
No, what came to my mind was autobiography. So you said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a good one for that. All right, now we're going to move on to the fun stuff. Well, I mean, it's all fun to me, but, I'm kind of a geek for journals. This is art journaling. So this is an example of art journal that we actually did at the gathering on Sunday. It just looks like I painted some lines, but underneath there's actually words written in white. So we either wrote with white colored pencil. You kind of write a little hard, or you write with the white crayon over your paper, and then we painted over those words. I wish I had like Alex's, because hers was way better than mine. But basically what you're doing on the art journaling is you're basically painting pictures, or you're drawing specific pictures. Sometimes you can use symbols to reflect feelings. For example, I do a little bit of art journaling, and I will use spirals to reflect when I'm having an anxiety attack. So there'll be spirals on the paper. And sometimes if I'm having a great day, then I will put, flowers and birds. Sometimes when I'm hungry and all day all I could think about was like eating, then I'll draw pictures of food. Art journaling is really good for those who are, number one, artistic, or number two, in an unsafe space, because sometimes you're somewhere where you cannot write down your feelings because somebody is going to look at your book and really mess you up. It is we have to be realistic. Sometimes you don't have the safe space to write your feelings down, and you may need to use symbols in order to say, what it is you need to say. And when you open it, or when they open it, they'll be like, oh, she just doodling in here. Yeah, okay, cool. However you want to see it. But art journaling is really, really cool if you are artistic or just want to express yourself in a different way. You can use colored pens, you can use markers, you can use paint. It's really fun. You can get messy with an art journal. It's just a different way to kind of get things going.
I have an example, and then we have a question we need to see if we can address. This is a prayer. I'd say it was sort of a prayer journal. I have a good friend of mine who's been praying for me regularly. And so what he did was and I don't know if you can see it, but it looks like it's all scribble. But he actually wrote prayers, and he ended up making it into an art piece. So within all of this is prayers, and it could be a journal. It really could be your own thoughts that he did this. And so I love it because it's a prayer for me. And then, of course, he highlighted some things on it. But this is, I think, another example of how you can use art to journal, and then it can actually be posted, because you can't really read what's here, but he knows what's here.
Right, exactly. So the question on the wall is, would you use a daily journal to log dreams, or have a specific journal for dreams? I have a specific journal for dreams. And let me tell you why I do that. Because a lot of times a dream is really more of a vision. Sometimes it could be like a prayer journal. I think that if you're going to put that, your dreams with something, I would generally put them with my prayer journal type stuff. But I honestly, I got a whole separate one. I have a separate journal for dreams. I have a journal for public spaces. That's the one where I do my art journaling. So, I mean, it's up to you. But I feel like if you're asking that question, you probably should separate them out, because that means that that there's something kind of unique and specific about those dreams that needs its own space. I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees. Or
Apostle, thank you for sharing that. Apostle Stephen Gardner. I would agree with that. I think, though, if you don't dream often, and some people have dreams every night and they don't necessarily journal them. But I think if you are one who has those specific dreams, then I would say, yeah, you'd want to separate them. But if it's not a regular occurrence with you, and that you do journal, I would journal it in your regular journal as you reflect. So.
Right. Or you can even go ahead. I was going to say, you can even put a different color paper in there. So like you can write the dream on like something else, like a separate piece of paper that comes from another notebook, and just fold it and slide it in. I've done that too. Sorry.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Pastor, even just being in a place where you're aware and you're listening to what God is telling you, because I do believe he speaks to us in dreams, right? And so having it separate makes it a lot easier for you to go back and find that, oh my, this happened somewhere, right? And so you're not especially if you write a lot or if you journal a lot, you don't
Yeah.
want to go through the same page, your daily journal, right? And
Right.
then you're going back to these dreams and you're there for hours and days trying to figure out and find
Right.
your dream.
So definitely hope that answered your question. Appreciate that one. The next move is stream of consciousness. Now, this one is kind of an interesting, specific type of journaling, but I wanted to bring it up because a lot of people kind of do this naturally and it just helps. So, stream of consciousness journaling is literally where you don't really write anything specific, you just write what you're thinking, whatever that is, in whatever order it comes up. You don't analyze any of your thoughts. You don't try and get a sentence together. You don't try and pull anything. It could just be beep, bop, boop, boop, bam. And then that's what you wrote. So stream of consciousness, I have a journal that's just a blank one. That's what I would generally use for stream of consciousness is a blank journal. This is a fancy, fun one too. Again, Target. But stream of consciousness is really for someone who doesn't know what to write and doesn't really have a real train of thought. They just have thoughts that kind of flow and pop in their head, and they don't really have any kind of, space for them to come out. Now, I know Trina has a specific, probably a more specific use for a stream of consciousness. It's not always recommended, but it does work if you're trying to get out of your head. I use it when I am having writer's block and I can't get the next sentence out. And there's just too many other things in my head going on. And I need to just clear my head a bit. Stream of consciousness is when I use that.
You have writer's block? Really?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I'm a human being. I know I've written quite a few books, but they don't all come easy peasy. They all take their different turns. So yes, I do get
something. I was Katrina.
Yes, when it comes to stream of consciousness, I think, and if you've experienced any type of trauma, what you're going to find is that you might have random thoughts, right? Because anyone who's experienced trauma, I think in a conference that we were at, that I was at a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Robert Roden identified that 86% of our brain, the operating system comes from the non-conscious part of our brain, right? So some of those thoughts are going to be dialogued or written out in that stream of consciousness writing or journal.
And then with a few minutes left, the last type, I put kind of blog or voice journaling listed, but really I wanted to include any sort of electronic journaling. And when I say electronic journaling, I got my iPad here. There's an app called Thought Diary on there that I have. There's also other electronic journals. You have your voice notes. Voice notes are basically where you can just get into your phone. It's different for each type, but basically where you can record your own voice on the phone. You can journal that way. Maybe you're not the person to be writing stuff down. Maybe you have issues with your hands. Maybe you have grip issues or nerve issues where you can't be writing down your thoughts every day and you need to type them in. I always recommend that you find a journaling app if you need direction. But if you have just a notes app or you have a Pages or whatever, the Microsoft Word, whatever it is that you use to write things in, you can create a folder on your computer or on your iPad or on your tablet for your journaling things. You can lock those. A lot of people need that to be locked. Some people do journaling through photos. You can take photographs. So basically any electronic form of journaling is what I'm kind of talking about. You can do a vlog. Some people will allow other people into that space. If you're trying to get into the world of like YouTube, consistently for yourself and even kind of working through your things, that can actually give you the confidence that you need to kind of maybe move into like a more public space. It's up to you, but there are electronic forms for those of us who do not want to grab a pen and a paper and write things down. I do all of these journals that I mentioned, like I do them all because I might be in the headspace to be online today, but tomorrow I really need the feel of pen and paper, so You don't have to stick to one journal or one type of journal. All of these are open to you. There are no rules. That's the thing, is when you're looking at journaling, unless you are in therapy and your therapist gave you specific instructions for that particular journal, there are no rules. You do whatever float your boat, whatever you feel in, do that, because that's the way that you'll get the most out of it if you enjoy it. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something releasing, something to let everything out.
One, I like to add a couple of things. One is that I got this tablet that is called Remarkable, and I got it for journaling specifically because I find for me writing is better than typing. That I find myself better able to communicate or get things out in writing than I do in typing. So it's a different kind of tab, but it is designed specifically. It feels like paper too. So that's one of the reasons I got it. The other thing that I wanted to add, and then we'll have some closing remarks, and one of the things I wanted to make sure we do is identify how we can help one another in this process. But one of the things that we identify in the stream of consciousness, and thank you, Apostle, again for identifying, he uses it for grief, the stream of consciousness in grief. But James, I mean, 1 Peter 5:7 talks about casting all of our cares upon him because he hears, and casting all of our anxiety. And so when one of the things that came to mind when you talked about stream of consciousness is something that we started doing a while back at First New Life, and that is called a trust box. And the trust box said that there are things that I realize I don't have any control over. I can't do anything about, but I need to get them out. I need to put them someplace. So what we do is basically just a dump of everything that's concerning you, everything that you've identified, if it's family or if it's an illness or if there's things going on in the world, just dump it all onto a piece of paper. And I actually have an envelope that I put it in, and it was called my trust envelope. And I folded it up and put that in the trust box. And so that says that now that I've moved out the way, so that as you identified, Pastor Jay, I now have I can move on because I've actually put that someplace. It's a place that I've actually done it, and I'm trusting God with it, whatever that happens to be. So I've done something with it, even though it does not seem like I've actually physically, but I have physically done it. I've actually put it on and cast it. My wife calls it a casting party. That I need to cast some stuff off. And so that's where I do it. What is it that you would say to someone who would say, how can I help someone else journal? Or how can someone else help me journal? Are there things that you would encourage them to do? Katrina?
So I give it as homework, right? And so the accountability piece is that we're going to talk about what your journaling process was like in our next session. Right. In addition to that, if someone's telling you that they're struggling with sleeping, typically the root of that is our thoughts will not turn off. We cannot turn off those thoughts. And sometimes it might even just be thinking about what you have to do the next day. Right. And if that's the case, I say keep a journal beside your bed and write it down and get it out. Because Jaylyn said it earlier, it's a form of brain dumping, and you clear out space. Yeah. So that you can move forward, so that you can sleep even. Right.
That's good.
My advice with people who want to journal and they need to either help somebody or be helped is journal with somebody else. Listen, you got your own journal, your own style. You could be doing art journaling and that person is doing reflective journal, or they're doing bullet point journaling, or whatever type is working for them. You can sit with somebody else and journal, just like we schedule time to go to the gym. If Saturday, or like we do in church, but if Saturday at 12 o'clock at the coffee shop or whatever, or at so-and-so's house, y'all want to sit down together and everybody bring their journal and you guys just journal together. I think a lot of times we feel like we have to be talking to one another in order to be together. No, you really being together is just that. If you're in a space with someone who you care about and they say they need help being, journaling, journal with them. Just journal. Y'all sit together and take that time alone together, because that's how you guys connect. You don't have to be talking to somebody to connect with them. As long as you guys are sharing in the same space and the same activity with the same purpose and the same mindset, it doesn't really matter if there's any noise for that. So you can journal, they can journal. And if you guys want to journal about a specific topic, maybe you guys get the topic together and you discuss it. But even if you don't want to share, journal with the person that you care about. Sit down together and y'all all get y'all journals and do it at the same time.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. I love that. And listen, one of the things that I would close this with, Katrina, if you would close this in prayer, but is someone needs to let Target know that they need to give us some money, because they got Pub really good today. So thank you, Jaylene, for Pub and Target. So they should sponsor this Bob Talk today. I love this. Thank you all. I pray that as we continue through and you continue to do some, taking some of what we've shared today, and I love that idea of journaling with somebody. I hadn't even thought about that. That really, that's pretty a powerful thing. I think Glenda and I can do that, and just go to a coffee shop and sit down and journal. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Katrina, would you close us in prayer?
Yes. Our Heavenly Father, we give you honor, we give you glory. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here once again together, Lord, and just identify ways in which not only we can speak to others, we can speak to ourselves, but Lord, even you can speak to us through our writing. Lord, I ask that you continue to move on each and every person who is tuned in, who is listening, who may listen in the future. Lord, touch them, help them, maybe even connect with someone who can guide them through this journaling process. And you will get the glory. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you for joining us on Bob Talk. This has been great. This has been good for me. I don't know about you, but it's been really good for me. We'll be back next week, prayerfully on time. But thank you for joining us on Bob Talk.
Bye, everyone.